Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Ask the Attorney. This is Season 2, Episode 3. I am Maya Engel with Up North Live News, joined by Mary Ann Wehr. Once again, she is an estate planning attorney here in Northern Michigan. And Mary Ann, as always, thanks so much for being here tonight.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome, Maya. You know, I really enjoy it.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here talking about something that I'm so passionate about. I'm still excited about our last live stream. I thought that one went so well with John on. But I just have an announcement, if you don't mind, before we move on. I want
Yeah,
to let
let's hear it.
okay. I just really want to let our viewers know, because of this live stream and I do some advertising through Up North Live, I often get calls from people from the Upper Peninsula.
Mhm.
And so, and it's hard to serve them because it has to be Zoom and it tends to kind of fall apart. Well, I've decided that this year I'm going to go up there 1 week a month from May through October and see if I can, because my thing is service. So see if I can serve some of those folks. So my first week, I'm going to be up there May 5th through the 9th, and I'm going to be in Sault Ste. Marie. They've got a wonderful co-working space there, so private office. And I just want to let folks know that I'll be there. So if anybody wants to join me, you can give me a call, send me an email. I'll send you a calendar link. So I'm kind of excited about it. I hope that I'm able to serve some people that have been calling.
That is very exciting. And I feel like estate planning is one of those topics that, like you said, you can do over Zoom, but I'm sure people just feel a little more comfortable and they can get to know you better. You can get to know them better when it's in person.
That's absolutely true. It is. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I understand people's words better in
Sure.
person. Yeah, I know.
All right. Well,
So
very exciting announcement, Marianne. And I do have Marianne's contact information in the description below. So if you want to reach out to her, I have her website and her phone number. But Marianne, let's get into today's topic. So today we're going to explore the experiences and people who inspire you in your work, as well as the practical steps that they take to make sure, or rather that you take to make sure that people's plans actually work when they need them. And so let's start off with a few of the people who have really inspired you in your work. Could you share some stories of clients or situations that have really stood out to you?
I really can. I honestly can. And it's so when I say they inspire me, right? They've inspired me to change my business operations. They've inspired me to add new services. They've inspired me because I see gaps that I know that I can help them close. So the first people that inspire me, and I've had a few who are come into my office. They're like, "Hey, we did this trust when our kids were really little. It's 30 years old. Is it still good?" Right? And so I just start asking them questions like, who's going to take care of your kids if you die? Oh, they don't need a guardian anymore. So they start to really kind of peel back the onion themselves and say, oh, and I was going to have this person do this for me, and he's no longer here.
Mm.
So it really, they kind of really answer their own questions about whether that plan is still good for them. But it needs to, and we've talked about this many times, that it just really needs to address your current family dynamics. Your plans change because your life changes, so everything doesn't stay the same. Everything and so that's the kind of the focus that I've put on this, because of a lot of people coming in, and I scratch my head and I say, these people invested in their future, they invested in their legacy to help their family. How is it that it became 30 years old and now wouldn't help? It's as if they have no plan almost. And
Yeah.
it, that question bothered me. And I thought, how can I address that? How can I help people who come to me and invest their time, their emotions, and their money in building a legacy for their family? How can I help them not have a plan that's 30 years old in three
Yeah.
decades?
Yeah.
Yep.
How can you address it?
Yeah, no, exactly. So how I have addressed it in my firm is I have offered what I call a client care package. What I want people to do with my client and my client care package is just minimal pricing as an annual fee. In fact, it includes the vault that we talked about last week,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a $129 value. And it includes, my any of my time that you need, without any additional charges. So it allows a person, if they've got a question, to call. Sometimes those questions drive changes. Oh, I didn't realize that when we set this plan up. I'd like to make a change. I'll make changes, simple changes to different, like agents under the power of attorney or trustees under a trust. Um, and my real goal is to maintain that investment at the value that it was when they created it. So I'll make simple changes. I keep in touch with them. I give them the legacy vault. I pay for the subscription there on an annual basis because I think that's a great tool for their. And if anybody didn't see last time our live stream last week, I really encourage them to kind of get an idea of what that is about. But my total goal is come in once a year, and we'll sit down and we'll make sure that we have everything in order and the decisions you made a year ago. And some people might say, well, I don't need to come in a year. That's okay. Come in 2 years, because you're going to have maybe purchased a new house, maybe had a new child, maybe you've moved your investment accounts, and all of these things really matter. So I just want people to feel comfortable about picking up the phone, calling me, calling our firm, and I've actually added some staff whose responsibility it is to just really make the client care package hum. That
Mm-hmm.
and something else we'll talk about later, but it's just key to keeping keeping up with your investment, I would say,
Sure.
and
So
that's how I've acted. Yep.
yeah, it sounds like you're being very proactive. You're not just fixing problems, but trying to prevent them before they happen.
And I think that even if I'm not your lawyer, that's how everybody with an estate plan. I'm not trying to say you have to think of your estate plan every day when you wake up. You have to read it every night. That's not at all. But every so often think about, maybe I need to check in with my lawyer to go over this thing every couple of years, 2 or 3 years, see if there's any changes that I would make to it. Um, and that's just a recommendation for anyone, whether your lawyer has a client care package or not. It's just, I really believe in staying ahead of the game. And I think if, as families who do this planning start to think about it, they don't want in 10 years to make the investment again, so,
Yeah.
so, and that's what can happen. So that's what I do. I mean, I've been inspired to add that service to my firm because of seeing enough 30-year-old trusts walking in the door and thinking, darn it, that was not going to do what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
And another point that you have mentioned to me is how unfunded trusts inspire your work. So, what is the story behind this?
Oh yeah, unfunded trust, and we pound this almost every time we get together, right? And the reason we do, I just had lunch with I lunch with financial advisors often, and we talk about trust. We talk about this stuff because it's important to them as well. And I had lunch today, and someone mentioned a trust, an unfunded trust. He was like, I have in front of me the most beautiful piece of paper, and I have to tell the person who's just lost someone that this beautiful piece of paper, or it's more than one piece of paper, but this beautiful document is meaningless because no assets were ever moved to that trust. And he's like, you wouldn't believe not the fights, right? Not head to head arguments, but the argument people want to put up, like, no, but we have this trust. We're not supposed to go through probate because we have this trust. And he will say, as he's getting into like a trust administration kind of move, he's like, yeah, I understand that. You've got a trust agreement, you've got a language, but it was never funded. So I've seen stories I've shared before of a great example is sometimes parents for their children will set up different types of continuing trusts. They
Hmm.
might put a lot of money in a trust with the intention of giving that child all of, and whatever that child needs in the area of money or assets or care or protection. But they don't want that child to have all of the money right now. For whatever reason, the child might have creditor issues. They may be in a marriage that the parents are thinking, I'm not sure that's going to last. Not that I think every parent wonders, so it's seriously, I don't know. But so if they choose to put that child's, or maybe all of their children's money into a continuing asset protection trust for them. It's not to keep the money from them, but it's to protect the money for them.
Hmm.
And so they've done this. They've done it. It's been hard thought out, different parameters when they can get the money, etc. Lo and behold, they don't fund the trust. So the trust seriously has no money in it that it can now distribute to those hard thought out trusts. And instead, maybe either like the worst that would happen is it's gone through probate and the property will then go directly to the children. Or maybe they had set up a beneficiary to the children. And so the money goes direct. I've, had this happen to a recent client. The money goes directly to the child and there's a creditor out there waiting for it. Sorry, but you owe whatever. And so that money doesn't benefit the child necessarily in the way that the parents wanted it to. And that's because the trust was not funded. And I know we talk about this all the time, but it's so critical. And you don't know how often I hear that someone died and their trust wasn't funded. And it really breaks my heart. So that inspires me. And I've got other stories I've shared in the past about an unfunded trust. That inspired me to add funding to for all of my plans. I have a probate avoidance plan,
Hmm.
and I have a person on my staff whose responsibility it is to work with our client, until all of the funding is done. And that same person now is going to be following up on the client care package. Hey, have you added anything? Are there any changes? And the complete idea is that when you leave the office, well, not when you leave the office, but when we say you're all set,
Hmm.
you're all set because you've not just got beautiful documents that are signed, but you have a strategically integrated plan where the funding meets goes into the trust, the money goes into the trust, and then whatever you've put in the trust is going to work at the time that you die when you need it. And that's how I've been inspired by these various um, difficult situations that have come in my door where a trust wasn't funded. I was inspired to just add funding. I, it's a um, I feel it's just my responsibility to
Sure.
make sure, because people don't know. I mean, do you know what I mean when I say, don't forget to fund your trust?
Yeah, before we started this segment, I would have no idea what that would
I,
even mean.
I know. And I know it feels like we repeat this and repeat this, but I know we don't have the same viewers all the time.
Right.
And I just can't, it bothers me to my core that this happens. So I do bring it up a lot.
Yeah, well, as you should. And it sounds like you're really hands-on when it comes to ensuring that someone's plan is actually functional.
I am. I am. As long as I know what you want, and as long as you've told me all about your assets, we're
Hmm.
going to cover them, right? If there's something you forgot to tell me about, it's going to be forgotten but say, oh, geez, here's a statement I just got. I forgot about it. I get it once a year. I'll have to tell Mary Ann about it and we'll get it taken care of. So it's just something that is so critical, so critical. I can't even tell you. You invest in your legacy and then you don't fund the trust. It is just not going to work. And it's really sad for me. But
Which is exactly why it's important to keep reminding people about this.
it is, and it's why it's important that my firm has invested in bringing on a person. I mean, I don't charge any extra because I have a person that's it takes care of it for people. It's just part of the plans that I have.
Right.
It's just that important.
So, Marianne, I think you mentioned this the last time that we talked. You mentioned a recent experience with a couple that really had an impact on you. Can you share that story?
They did. So I had, and in fact, when they first called, I was kind of puzzled. And so I was really interested in meeting them because I wasn't exactly sure that I understood what they wanted. But they called me and they basically said, or one of them called me, but the two came in. They basically said, hey, we have an estate plan that we worked on with a great lawyer that we trust. We like the plan, but we just don't completely understand it. Would you be willing to take a look at it? Will you look at it? And if you see anything, and we'll tell you what we think we have. If you see any gaps, you can tell us, and we'll go back to our other lawyer and update and have it updated. And at first I thought, that's just kind of odd. I mean, it wasn't like critiquing. It wasn't like, it was a real positive conversation. And when they came in the office, it was very positive. It was just, I would get a second opinion maybe if I was going in for critical surgery, was kind of how they explained it. I'm
Mhm.
going to kind of get a second opinion here and see what your thoughts are. And one of the outcomes of that was just kind of watching their a light bulb come on, like remembering what it is they had, right? Oh, that's right. We did that. That was a good idea. We did that. Okay, we're good with that, right? So they just needed some clarity. They didn't want to overhaul it. A lot of times I'll have people say, I just need this all rewritten. And I kind of liked this approach of let's find out if we do. It might be just fine. And that particular family, it wasn't an old document by any means,
Mhm.
but they didn't. um and I don't know if I asked them, have you tried to set up a meeting to go in? I think they just wanted a second set of eyes. You know how when you proofread something, you see something different?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that's what they did, and they just needed clarity. Um, Wanted to know that their plan was working. And then I think in the end of our conversation, they did disclose that one of them just had a bad diagnosis. Wasn't like they were going to die tomorrow, but it made them think, are we okay?
Right.
Right. So they came.
Always, yeah, always good to, like you said, just double check to make sure all of the ducks in a row. And that's great too that they trusted you. And I'm sure for you, that must feel very rewarding. It sounds like they knew that they could come to you for an honest analysis of what they already have.
That was rewarding. That was rewarding because that said to me, they're not coming to me, or they trust me to do an honest analysis, just like you said, without like saying, "Oh dear, the sky is falling. We just need to redo this. You owe me. I'll just charge you this much." And that wasn't at all that's not me. And yeah, that's just it was an interesting request, but one that I thought, the next time someone calls about that, I may be a little more open to it because I'll recognize it's not, um, you know, it's just an honest analysis. Yeah.
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 Let's kind of we already talked about this a little bit, so might be a little repetitive, but let's go back to funding a trust. So I'm assuming one of the most common questions you get based on what we've talked about is whether a trust is properly funded. So how do you help families navigate that uncertainty?
That's exactly it. And that's kind of another question that can come in my door, right?
Yeah.
Um, And and because the term funding is so odd, people really still aren't comfortable because when it boils down, it's kind of a simple concept. But when you first start throwing out the word funding, oh, we need to fund your trust, I think people sit back a little bit.
Yeah.
and and they work with you because you're saying these are your choices, we want to get it into your trust, or this is an account that we would have a beneficiary to your trust, but the whole goal is you've put a lot of hard work into deciding the rules of that trust. We want it to distribute your property. So we have, long conversations about that, but I know at some point, you kind of help walk through people. You say, what are all of your assets? And I've sometimes even that is like, assets. What does she mean by assets? I honestly, and so as a lawyer working in this every day, I find I have to be careful, right? So I have to say your bank accounts, your investment accounts, your stocks, your 401ks, your life insurance, just really list it out for them of the types of assets that we're looking for, and walk through them, take the necessary steps to fund their trust. So we will, list out everything they have, and then say, well, let's see what we did 6 months ago or a year ago. Did we cover all of that? And really helping them to understand what it takes to add something, understand what it takes to bring this all together. And I guess I just want to say, and this would be something that we would do in our annual review, if we're going to review a trust in your plans. And I would always add, let's look at your assets. So we're sure we've got them all, any new ones, anything missing. But Maya, my trust, my plans that include a trust, I call a probate avoidance plan. And I call it a probate avoidance plan because I think you're going to avoid probate, but I know you're not if you don't fully fund it. So,
Yeah.
so that's why we take close care of all of that. And I just feel like when I've told you that I think you're making a good investment into a probate avoidance plan, I've made a promise. I've made a promise to you that your plan's going to avoid probate. Now, if I walk away without paying close attention to that funding, or without checking in with you every so often to see if you thought of your trust when you reinvested your money, um, I feel like I'm breaking that promise to you. And I don't want to do that. So I know tonight we talked about kind of plugging holes, and plugging holes is knowing that even my trusts, even after our care, there can be pieces that fall outside. And every year we hope to find it. Um, so that's kind of it. I mean, it's no more difficult than that, but it just is such a strange, just like I've talked about before, estate planning. I think that's a really difficult term. What does it mean? What does it mean? And so now you add to estate planning that you fund something. So like people are like, do I need to? I literally had one couple say, now do I need to write you a check to fund this? And it was a fair question
Yeah.
because I probably was like, well, no, we'll fund it. Now come in next week, we'll fund it. We'll fund it. And they're like,
Right.
how?
Uh,
What? Your
what do you
check? I mean, I'm not getting you. So
Yeah, there
yeah.
is a lot of confusion when it comes to this sort of thing, and that's why it is so great to have someone like you who can explain it in a simpler way and make people understand what they need to know. And just to reiterate what you mentioned earlier, I think the most important thing is a lot of people don't realize that they do need to fund it. They think, okay, I have a trust, I'm done, right? But really, it's the funding that actually makes it all work.
That's exactly it. Because actually, and we don't parse words like this, but actually what you have is a trust agreement that manages the trust that you create, and you've created no trust, is really how that flows. But I know I'm not going to go down that path like, oh no, I'm sorry, you have a trust agreement. You don't have because
Yeah.
we all shorten it, right? But yeah, that's what makes it all work. That
Yep.
is absolutely what makes it all work, and it doesn't limit you in using your bank accounts or your investment accounts
Right.
or your general assets. So it's a good thing. Um, and but I have come to learn it's a lot like, well, I knew going in. It's like algebra. When I was learning algebra, I loved it. I was one of those people that loved it, did great in it. As time goes by, I don't even know what algebra is,
Right.
right? I mean, I just don't. And and that's the same with people with their truck. When they're working with me, they're engaged and thinking about it, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and now they're going to live, and they're not. So if I bring them back in every year and say, now let's think about it again a little bit, they're more than willing to do that.
Yeah. Well,
And it
Mary Ann, it's
helps.
very clear that you are very passionate about ensuring people's estate plans are actually functional and up to date. Is there anything else that you want our viewers to know tonight that you haven't mentioned yet?
Boy, I don't think so. I mean, I really have felt like um, I guess the one thing I'm just trying to get to is it's not a one and done deal, right?
Yeah,
And I think we say that a lot too. It's it is what you need at this time in your life, right? So when James was small, what we needed at that time in our life was also protecting James more than as much as anything else. Having a guardian for him, making sure that people knew what to do with him, what our wishes for him, what our values were if the guardian needed to step in because some tragic thing happened. Well, then James became an adult. He no longer needs a guardian, but as a young adult, he probably needed a sub trust set up for him so that he wasn't holding the bag on more money than we don't have a lot of money, but more money than he'd ever seen, right? So as stages go on, and this we were fortunate this wasn't the truth, but had James had some kind of a abuse problem, we would have wanted to help him, but not give him direct money. That
right.
would just hurt him. So there's a lot of things, as I always say to people when they talk about their young children, I say, you don't really know them yet, really. And they're like, yeah, you know what, you're right. They're just toddlers or they're just five or whatever. So as life changes, and then a child becomes a full-fledged adult. They've got their own kids. They've got their own grandkids. They've got, at that point, parents are like, if they get anything of mine, they know what to do with it. They don't need it safeguarded in a trust. They don't need it. So those are examples of how your points of view of how you would handle your children, would now we are now looking at how would we handle our grandchild in our situation and thinking have we don't have to worry about the guardianship, but we do have to worry about what's the right thing to do for him,
Yeah.
so so that's how those are just examples of how life changes, plus the things of divorce and buying new houses and selling old ones and all that kind of stuff. New
Right.
new children arrive, So yeah,
A lot of changes throughout life. That's why it's important just to make sure your estate plan is always up to date, like you mentioned. But Mary Ann, we are out of time. But thank you so much for once again joining us and for providing some really great advice. I think all of our viewers really appreciate all of the insight that you have shared. And again, to anyone watching, don't wait to make your estate plan. That is truly, you just need to have it ready for whatever the future may hold, and you can always update it as you go. Anything else that you want to mention before we go, Mary Ann?
there's no promise of tomorrow. I mean, that's just the bottom line, right?
Yep.
But thank you so much, Maya. I really love doing these. And hopefully folks are gaining information, giving them something to think about. So
I
hopefully
certainly
so.
think so. Well, thanks so much
Okay.
again, Mary Ann, and we will
You bet.
see you next month, right? For our
Yep.
next
Yep. Yep.
Ask the Attorney.
Or
All right.
yep. Yep. Sounds good.
We'll see you then. And just a reminder, we do have Mary Ann's contact information in the description below. So if you do want to reach out to her, that is all there. And if you have any specific questions for Mary Ann and you maybe aren't ready to go see her in person yet, you can always ask them in this platform. This is kind of the goal for why we're doing
That's
this.
right.
We want folks at home to be able to ask any questions. And then, during our segment, we'll take some breaks to answer your questions. So although our segment today is over, maybe next time, if you want to leave a live comment, you can do that on our Facebook, YouTube, or X. And you can always send us an email to the newsroom. It's just newsroom@upnorthlive.com. Maybe put the subject line, ask the attorney, and we'll be sure to ask Mary Ann that next month when we chat with her then. But until
Absolutely.
thanks so much for joining us tonight, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.